Hello, species value nature system. This is about species coach. This is about species beggar. This is what I want to set up. See, because we have an industry unrealized here, and it's games. It only feels like games. Who trains? Species beggar after begging. What I want to set up is a value reception platform there and here, that is owned by that value reception platform, where we can make a temporary value nature system where we can have I don't want to say a holiday. We can call it that, you know. But it's like to put the species in these hospitals too, where we have to put a value nature system to replace jobs that are forced to rely on experts involved, recorded, originally still maintained effectively, criminally foreign influence, fact treatment, racket roles, sequence shifts, fact treatment agents making fights with areas and criminally preventing reality from being demonstrated, criminally foreign influence database roles, criminally foreign influence that they're recorded sustaining insidious lies through kids. They're pretending it's about behavior and their aggressions in relationship to the behavior of others online, but they're sequence shifting to do this. And they were way worse before that. And through time, connected to the corners of streets. We're connected wherever there is a unity that is positive, it's taken away. For a method originally and still in relationship to how and why it's maintained valued, how we have recorded criminally foreign influence zoning laws originally, but and still because it was valued, blamed on other causes, things themselves, the real causes of it, the real uses of it, which were insidious and thick, not by accident, engineered to keep all juxtaposed victim predators, liars of fact treatment nature style, preventing correlation in simultaneously inherent active and progressive means as the trinities at value, distinctly and non-distinctly onto the three natures of value our complete identity is, while and how simultaneously it is simultaneously an unceasing semi-nature. And semi-nature relationship to what only value transfers to value gain simultaneously, and or to lose that in demonstration of itself. This is Earth simultaneously distinct and non-distinct, value lost through these other systems. So we need constant value jobs countering negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures that are only going to be increased, only be covered up the causes of it, valued the causes of it, needed even for these natures of value nature systems. Nothing goes. Cars go in value streams every day. Sick as an identity negative value nature progression. Never lifting people out of recorded, used for tortures, used methodically as roles to keep people from free speech, to keep people from rights to religion, forcing that insidiously while they pretend other by maintaining each position of the ground as criminal insidious natures. So we're going to train about what the organized crime that was the fact cheaping nature slavery of our founders was about. I'm not a lawyer, not a police form, not a criminal, not a boxer. I mean, I'm not a military boxing. I was going to say I'm not a doctor, but and but I could delineate the delusions from the criminal foreign influences of psychology recorded, and you can't tell American history without telling that about the identity of logic's obfuscation. about the value of the trinity of correlation nature's obfuscation, which is valued by and as into the sequence nature progressively, inherently, actively, and progressively and simultaneously. And if you're not allowed this, if you're not allowed free speech, everyone's lying to everybody. In the background, they're pretending because everyone's speaking through others. And they're forging names, switching names. This is a method that's keeping value obfuscated the identity of the ground's relationship to our body of value, fact, treatment, nature, value. And the means of correlation nature, they're keeping little sick fakes to roles where they need to pretend emotions and passions to pretend they have integrity offensively. They need to steal people's identities. They need to pretend in the backgrounds what they can't pretend on the surface. And to hide that, and how it's they're recorded with all kinds of manifest crime methods, natures and roles with courts and interbranch, forging names, switching sequences, interstates. They're this maintained an outcome per the method of child abuse is recorded juxtaposed, women roles with it. Interbranch, altogether, distinctly and non-distinctly. When our nature is treated positive, also positive unto itself, which science is obligated to demonstrate how positive. There is an identity that is invisible but is discernible. Inventions work or not in relationship to it. They are further positive or negative and not in relationship to it. They are further positive or not to everything else, in other words, simultaneously to the value of everything, which that simultaneous nature, every cell of our body is of importance to our complete nature. Their complete nature, the entire their nature of identity of positive, each cell is distinctly and non-distinctly the same identity of positive that our complete nature is. No, as value smaller than the smallest, smaller than the value of the heart, and then while being it, and no bigger than the heart while being it. Allah Akbar, the Trinity. Jesus Christ says he is the Alpha, he is the Omega. This is with cipher. In sequence, George Washington said he did not chop down the cherry tree. Now, there are proofs that he knew that they were going to steal his identity many ways, and that he didn't have free speech to leave us detailed, because then they would have, if you try to go into detail about being a complete, in other words, they had to put damage control the same way overall modern religions had to. The original ancients had no problem agreeing that there is an identity of value progression that is inseparable from all others. And they didn't fight about what the name is and stuff like that, because they realized before criminally foreign influenced sciences, criminally foreign influenced, not sourced by one though. They learned about criminal foreign influence. They had a sophistication that would realize the value of the republic for which we stand, that was in ancient times revealed. It was in semi-ancient times criminally foreign influenced. Then modern religions came greatly about this, and about what it's denying and how it's being denied, and the value of that and uses of that, and what's going to happen and what is happening with that. And then there's the modern religions up to the founding of modern nations in the same track, this sickly distinctly specific, methodically, effectively, consciously, willfully, methodically, to keep how sickly, non-distinctly from being discerned. And as bad as that is deep and great as it is to it once you admit it. We're in a value nature system that of course we can't afford anything. So then we come to the fifth, which is here. And 5 is the number of order, praying to be the order of 10, and gaining through it as the value of 11. Here. She means appear. So, in other words, we need a value reception platform. And this is my idea to measure and make sure we keep positive value nature progressions and keep everyone believing in it and discerning that and how we can force our identity of relationship to the ground everywhere we are outside of the trap that left people. So in other words, I want to bring up the term communism and socialism. Those are terms, for example, used to maintain physical delusions juxtaposed with criminal foreign influence effectively, fake sides, defending fact-cheap natures that offensively have to lie about areas, have to lie about the value of everything the same way, have to value that, and then not realizing have to value and do value that way as where it counts as fact-cheap nature, value wars, things like that to defend the titles using titles and jobs, natures of experts, natures of time, everywhere being used criminally too fast, too slow, database relationships, fact-cheap nature as told to be furthered. Can't defend that in yourselves from what is maintaining everyone needing to blame insidiousness, mass insidiousness on other things other than themselves. And that as sensibilities formally all victim predators. You can't defend the sensibilities of criminal insidiousness nature, criminally legalized, and us from what is preventing through them, through our branches, through our campuses, stewards, from off the ground of education and then consciously maintained on and off each age of campus, each nature of it in collusion with what is keeping, especially psychology, originally still kept where and how, like when they had witch trials, they had interbranch fakes. When they put, for example, before America, when they had St. Nicholas, they put him in prison, criminals set him up interbranch. Jesus Christ, they wouldn't live, they just framed him. They're still doing that with databases. They're still stealing people's identities overtly. And we're not allowed to demonstrate this, especially because of the sequence shift roles. And so, and for that and how the influences over the people being used for the offensive evidence reception, identity theft crimes by the interbranch, and how influence to it and maintain that way, victim predators. That's how that is maintained. The outcome. I was going to get too deep, but the point is, we're gonna. So we have the industry. In other words, it's not competition. If everyone owns the value of something, and there's no competition that day, and this is besides taxes, and this is directly for beyond the value nature system to counter every modern nation recorded forced to value positive, forced to value only let realized manifest. You have to forsake originally forsaken. Quality of faith, fact, cheaping nature, even needed to interpret the religions, for example. with campuses as value nature treatment simultaneously, not as the religious books out of sequence too. They're doing it out of sequence because they're taking it as well, their subject matter is value, and value is progression, the cause of it. This that bonded matter, and then became more another unique, more value as matter, as that gaining from that, distinctly and non distinctly as itself. Distinctly and non distinctly, everything is positive or negative to the overall complete identity that is even greater than that, and the semi nature that comes with it a little bit more and more. Not just alpha and omega, our complete nature of volume's identity, which is a quality of diffusion in relationship to its identity, which is bigger than itself and which is smaller than itself, as a nature that is everywhere at once. That is the order to the smallest thing, the finite. See, definite, finite, in the word definite article, indefinite article. The indefinite articles in English, a and an. It's not just because they come before vowels, why we put the N before, and before a word like apple, an apple. If you say a lemon, there's a consonant there. So you just use A instead of AN. But that means alpha neutrality, AN. The letters of the English alphabet, excuse me, they were revealed by the ancients manifest as sounds that have an identity of relationship to themselves. As an organ of a body, has an identity of relationship to its complete identity of nature. That is simultaneously an identity of relationship to another complete identity of nature that is also distinctly and non-distinctly with the other sounds that are not contained in the 26 sounds, in and as the identity of and as the bonded and the identity of relationship to themselves and the value of that English letters have, which is simultaneously and unceasingly either positive or negative, inherently, actively, and progressively, and at the same time. And as what demonstrates itself and its identity of relationship to itself this way. So even if we all agree on the name of God, we still can't, no, in other words, we're not supposed to. We're supposed to understand that this is the subject, this invisible but discernible identity and identity of relationship to itself, that inventions work or not in relationship to. That inventions are further positive or negative or not in relationship to. So they offensively had maintained value and maintained self-cultivated value, unrealizing how, but through live progressions and live progression cover up nature's needs and styles, as the only realized formal positive treatment natures. So positive never had free speech. Positive never had. That's why his proofs. I didn't read that George Washington said that he meant Connecticut when he said cherry tree. But George Washington did not chop down the fake branches in Connecticut. That's why and how, even with the French general's help, they had to leave over slavery with color here. Because they had more than one, they had too many nations together individually grouped hundreds of nations, and together sick. You could, and as police forms forced to share policing internation, as nature's forced to share what was shared about that. In other words, that and how they would share policing as identities of the law. No, that you can't defend that and us at the same time. And they didn't realize how you can't defend. You can't even. They couldn't even fathom what was sophistication before that, and using it the whole time. I just remind, we're in a trap. Each modern nation now must rap. So this is a way, that nations can make a value nature system. Now see, look, we have different markets, values of money, right? But this is a plan where we can agree to get, like, to give us the tools. The species goes into this healing state, and they leave off their machines in some gas. And we use the identity of the relationship to the ground that it wants and needs to be paradise, where there is water. It is sick to have people stacking, a pathology of home infrastructures methodically anticipated, knew was going to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures as criminal insidiousness nature, sickly, distinctly, and non-distinctly in each nature of city, as a suburb is a nature of city. Each science has this obfuscated, even math, which is why and how they get away with pretending not to realize that, and how English is being obfuscated, that and how each of the sciences is being obfuscated. It's real, required fact treatment nature approach. In other words, to answer all questions correctly without denying exceptions. See, there are means. We're going to examine means how we can go. We can, even though people can know more about things than we do, they can have more knowledge than us. Intersciences. We're going to demonstrate through time how it was not let demonstrated, how recorded the sciences were criminally foreign influenced and recorded juxtaposed delusions wrought. And recorded because how overt criminal enterprises and how private ones were juxtaposed. I'm not a lawyer now, please, from not criminal. Boxings. It tells us things. Prepare is one. See native drum. This truth is native pure, as value sure. See, to make sure we're right about the name of what the identity, this identity is. See, the ancients couldn't believe that humanity would forget how to reveal evolution. And that and how and why nature has this identity. Identity is nature. As the identity, as what is the bond onto the before, while being, and more than that, at the same time as the one bonded identity of value progression, as the Trinity, as three natures of invisible but still discernible. Value nature inside values nature. There is also two other natures of invisible but still discernible value as well. Religion swell. Some bring the name. And campus too. Campus Marcius needs the name. Come through, call lost and found, who'll train. They do not want us. They will not let us use calm voices. See, that's how we have to understand how already states and areas were victim predators. lying about the value of areas, lying about the value of businesses. Because all are victim predators. We're in value nature system that is tactical ulterior from this one that is in demonstration to us always the only way, as the only one that can be, as the only one that the ancients understood how to cause evolution. They couldn't believe that humanity, they couldn't fathom that humanity would ever consciously um, sabotage the means to cause evolution. The motivations came from it because of misprision roles with juxtaposed natures of organized crime knew they were going to get caught. So, what, in other words, this is the most logical motivation for such. When you know that if you're going to be positive onto the individual nature or volume, scientifically, and you're going to be positive onto group nature or volume, like states, areas, nations, and sexes, and then this entire bonded species nature or volume at once, it's going to be in that order. But when it's positive as the nature of its own volume are gaining, that is also gaining as positive, that is also positive onto itself, as forever nature, as temporary slash forever, lasting forever nature, as fact, achievement nature obligations are obligated by science to demonstrate. Only the extent of it is debatable. So we're but offensively, we have the sciences, each of them invested, not by accident, needing influenced to, hurt to, and persuaded to obfuscate how the sciences share an identity simultaneously, inherently, actively, and progressively. So the predicate of English is in demonstration of this course as identity nature that is before the value of the heart while being the value of the heart. And beyond that, while being the value of the soul, while being the value of the soul's value to the identity of value progression that generates everything, that generated everything from nothing, as the identity of value progression, that English was as revealed as algebraic consciousness for the discernment of what's going to cause positive value nature progressions and its fruits as evolution and its revelations in natures of forever positive or time too slow, too fast. Time is a value inside forever nature and its identity of relationship to itself, positive or negative, where and how we are gaining its nature of volume. And its nature of volume is positive and negative mixed, with a little bit more of its complete identity coming into a nature it can't come into. So only a little bit comes in this way. But as its complete natures simultaneously inseparable nature of identity of relationship to itself. So that stays manifest value as the cause to perfect value progression evolution means from nowhere. And though they're lost, Lethe of Hades, for space nature transfer. It was like a game. It was like a game. Fun. The species was so value difference originally. Because then it's easier to see what direction are we valuing? what direction is it valuing in relationship to itself? In other words, before, while being, and beyond the value of the force. This source is course. Bach sings. It tells us things. Prepare, behold. This gains the volume of the skyline. Old. The timeless fills. It lifts and gifts or leaves. Lethe of Hades. The 10. Algebraic consciousness. YouTube.com/user/Romulus. Right here, I'll be the species coach. I'm begging you, I'll be species, but I'll tell you how to set it up. We make it, in other words, there's no competition if one day everything is for this one sale. Is everything for and owned by to do it as cheap as possible. In other words, not through these systems, right through zoning laws, things like that, right through the impositions that we share, making things there more expensive. In other words, we pay for this going by the identity of the ground and countering consciously bottom up who's hurt the most by what is distinctly hurting each modern nation. Because it's sickly, non-distinctly hurting us, and we have to do it in that sequence. Because that's individual. The nature of the individual is inseparable from each position of the human fact-shaping nature. Like leaders, their free speech is being forced to entertain criminal insidiousness nature, self-value. But organized crime method maintains self-value. Recorded, ISIS is in collusion with people that hate them here, because these are manifest, overt criminal enterprises roles mixed with a whole bunch of private and uncharged inter-branch originals still. Line progression, cover up that database solution stack, and identity theft racket roles. This identity's course. Bach sings. It tells us things. Prepare, behold. It lifts the warm. It works with hot and cold. These are not means. One way redeems. So we also, in other words, every position. In other words, if we solve everything real fast, instantly, in one day, one week, one day for a holiday, a week or whatever, then we come out of that. All these jobs, all the nature of everything was invested needing that. So we have to understand how we are a tactically denatured relationship to the nature. The value of our ground was already valued. And having been valued, lied about from it as a tactically denatured relationship to nature, and from it as a tool, inseparable from it as what is with the requirements of any modern nation to teach their history properly. Someone could know all kinds of facts that I don't know about. And that you guys don't know about American history, about other nations' histories. This is in relationship to why we're not supposed to talk. Mom doesn't want us to talk about them, per what I read. Because they didn't have free speech. How could they have free speech? Nations were forced individually together and all together to hide what you can't hide and defend free speech, but they're pretending other misprision too. So they're saying what they're pretending they're not saying at the same time. So you have to say that they're saying what they're saying they're not, consciously, criminally into record, so they could put that and pretend and not leave the time for anyone to demonstrate that they had said more other before, and how they're saying it consciously and pretending other. That's recorded. What does that interbranch does that with areas too. Because when they know people have to talk about that, and people have different ways to understand this before they understand it completely, and they're forced to counter it, and that they're forced hurt because they adapt to those counters this way, and their motivations for that are not understood by everyone but through their needs as lie progression cover up nature's needs and styles. Uses of those lie progressions recorded sustained on areas and blamed on other things, others themselves, and that really being the causes of the shootings, not guns. That's not in nature. So how could it be involved with the decision process? They're recorded consciously. The sickest people involved pretending that they believe that it is biological reasons that there are shootings in areas. We have physical delusions enter sciences, criminal foreign influence juxtaposed, and I'll delineate the delusions now for and with you from the criminality and from this method recorded, bonding liars, natures of liars, to styles, roles, needs, and natures, valuing hate for each other, but not even realizing valuing it to hide their lies, to hide their fake sides of correlation nature commonly valued. The first part of this, the Quran, the first part of the Old Testament, commonly devalued. The sequence nature of what George Washington said, commonly devalued. He said he did not chop down the cherry tree. And he left in Connecticut right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. He had to come here with the French general, and they could only semi-counter extort. What had them as fact, cheaping nature slaves, tortured here and there. Had them inside an identity theft racket's bonded trap, forcing itself valued per a torture method. This is using health, the needs of health. That's why and how it's so important for you guys to note the recorded sustained child abuses, intercampuses, intercities connected. When people say this, that's why they offensively manifest offensively pretended care for against hate speech. Because these are branches, recorded criminally foreign influence, delusions, raw, lie progression, cover up needs, natures, and styles that need to pretend they're positive. And where and how this breaching method was effectively keeping everyone using each nature of difference as a weapon against each nature of correlation, nature's integrity. Forced self-value. And forced self-value having only been let realize value in a sustained way. Consciously to maintain human fact, human nature, sensibilities as criminal insidious nature. Consciously to have that maintained as the only let realize sophistication. Consciously to have that as victim predator valuing would only let that realized as the alternative as everything is. Boxings, it tells us things. So in other words, this is an industry, and this is education. We just juxtapose everything we need to do into the same tasks, and it's owned by what we feed to as the Trinity, and as its really value relationship to itself, is which the value reception platforms are necessary for. For example, value nature, each cell is a complete identity. It is a healthy cell. I'm not a doctor. Each of the sciences I'm going to demonstrate means to show correlation, nature, simultaneously inherent, active, and progressive means that and how they are methodically maintained roles with exploitation of the natures of integrity only realized. Tactical ulterior from the nature of integrity actual. So free speech is correlation. Free speech is simultaneously inherent, active, and progressive means were never let heard. The identity of each person who tried to speak for it was hurt. Their identity was stolen. So now this that was doing this through timing as a database relationship crime method that they didn't understand. In other words, and it effectively knew that it was going to have to adapt through ages with this. And what they did now, the only there's easy means to avert. It's already recorded how to demonstrate this recorded. See, but they already have invested, lied about to presidents. Their roles lied about to the candidates becoming presidents. Their roles with offensive evidence reception and criminal foreign influence maintained through group misprisionality maintained. This is tied to why they're forcing sustained lies about me and through kids with fake news crime acts, identity theft crimes. These are not just a whole bunch of natures of crime acts with the fake lies they told about me, attaching me to fake relationship to doctors and mental diagnosis as a kid. Spreading rumors and lies about through kids with proven criminal enterprises in the past, juxtaposed with the same lies with federal criminals that did so since before they were proven federal criminals, and with other federal criminals since before they're already proven. And further, now they've been doing it through time with the same schools, each age of them, like a Joshua Julian, spreading lies with overt criminal enterprises, recorded and confessed to also involved crimes with co-defendant federal federal criminals were co-defendants of former director of the FBI. Interbranch police, foreign and domestic military, criminally involved with them on-off CCSU, on-off Trinity College, interstates with people, facilitated the crime acts roles with them through time. That was facilitated, motivated by sequence shift roles that they keep Miss Prissy involved with. Then when the people need to, anyone who needs to speak about this, they're only going to understand it through others' names that can't go back and tell the truth, that already were invested to lying about, into roles facilitated, they don't even realize it. You know, database illusion stacking and uses of that criminally with and as crime methods, natures, and roles, and fact treatment nature originally still interbranch, forging names, switching names. Switching names to prevent counters to what originally still was before the identity of the ground. Value nature relationship bonded inseparable from our quality of fact treatment nature. And the value of that overall, that was maintained criminally foreign influenced and self-valued. That's what divided the Native Americans. First, it took their education, tactically forced them to retreat natures, time impositions, too fast, too slow, education, conviction nature. In other words, make mistakes, forced, devalue, themselves and others, blame other causes, other things for the real causes of it. Nations A through Z, people A through Z. That's colonists A through Z, tribal members A through Z, tribes A through Z. Not one could see without the species bond as values guide. Because that's what caused the ancients knew how to cause evolution by being positive onto this nature of volume that is the order to the finite. Smaller than the smallest thing. Completely as its value, as nature. And nature has value simultaneously, distinctly and non distinctly. And that's the value of that. And as that, as one nature of three ways, as simultaneously, that you can use correlation nature as a scientific nature of prayer. It's just a little bit. It's not, and you can figure out what's going to cause. Number two, we can monetize. In other words, say there are a whole bunch. There's a book. The New York game is about this too. Like each city should have a book, and the book organizes what's going to make instantaneous, simultaneous natures of reliefs to what is recorded to correlation nature that is honest with and as our natures simultaneously inherent active and progressive means. Regarding recorded criminally forsaken nature of our entire species volume, let alone that her worse by recorded everywhere, either landscape, theater, or overtly tactically denatured relationship to nature, tactically denatured value of soils, tactically denatured relationship of soils, relationship to water, tactically denatured relationship of our relationship to the means by the depths available with water and with the orchestration of it to ecosystems as the garden, as what evolves, and as what makes peace as that is also positive unto itself, which is discerned distinctly from peace because you're in a breaking trap, not to be a horse trained to run, not to be slave roles as our founders were and as we are today. Hear many pray. And they want it countered. I mean, what are they doing? Countering. Counter prejudice is not what's hurting everyone. Blaming it on that and uses of everyone blaming on that as a weapon is doing that. It's preventing demonstration of what's preventing integrity. It's simultaneously inherent, active, and progressive means. The people that pretend to hate are the ones who are pointing out what they hear and read from other people, telling lies in the background at the same time about their own roles with experience. They were influenced in this interbranch distinctly and non-distinctly as themselves, and with roles with that, the branches criminally foreign influence, delusions raw. The campus's inclusion with that. From off the ground of education, Consciously, it knew that it was going to be stay sophistication beyond the value of all natures of campuses, valued distinct, to hide their sickly, non-distinct exploitation, which is from off the ground of education, then from off campuses as the same crime method on off campuses again, as a method maintaining layers of misprision criminality, identity theft rackets roles. This is what they are really most insidiously and sickly furthering the overt criminal enterprises for. Furthering motivations, natures, needs, and roles. Motivating counters to the sickest impositions with the drugs and with other chemical impositions to maintain the counters to them used as natures needing to hide their database into offensively hide offensive database illusion stacking roles. Needs and natures to maintain defenses of misprision and criminality. People they don't even know, styles of liars, even like ISIS and like psychology, with nations individual grouped and together. Can't defend their physical delusions recorded, mixed with their criminal foreign influences. Again, which I'll help you delineate here, so we can all do it simultaneously, inherently, actively, and progressively every day. Him many pray. So then we set up, this, each nation has to value the instant revelations and value of admitting that and how before modern nations an organized crime method was entrenched, and it requires demonstrating how we are as fact nature needing to demonstrate how it's through criminal foreign influences that are self-valued. But forgiveness is in relationship to this, because those criminal influences were being completely a fact cheating nature racket, database racket, identity of the ground exploitation racket, roles with a whole that this is within as a method that maintains a whole bunch of other natures of rackets as line progression styles, natures, needs, and roles, maintained, facilitated categorically, sequentially, progressively, and as an identity, as natures of identity thefts, missed, but totally recorded. Not one reported true. And when they do fake news, they pretend that they're trying to catch people lying. Because they've been lying, and they're lying about that every time I note that. And they're doing that to sustain. So that's recorded being used, having been used to sustain child abuses. They directed fake news to steal my identity. Various natures of news were already criminally foreign influenced with the branches and with their sources that they pretend that they just influenced to make confessions in the past about roles with criminal foreign influence, criminal enterprises alone. But it wasn't like that because they were with groups like that. And that even if they knew about that, it was demonstrated how it's recorded how other overt criminal enterprises are using the ground, maintaining the branches criminally foreign influence distinctly and non-distinctly, each branch individually, together in group, forging names, switching names, needing to hide those natures, needing to pretend they use the right to lie. The way they don't know, then these are people pretending they're against dictators, they're pretending they're against communism, they're pretending they're against socialism, they're pretending they're against capitalism. isms before modern nations. In other words, they're using that too to measure, maintain, only let heard, only natures that are forsaking what was is forsaken, never liberated. And with physical delusions, again, with criminal foreign influences, they need to be delineated from each other because both of them are being used by worse, by a whole crime method recorded, and that is recorded binding fake sides. The Quran warns against what ISIS is about. Muslims who think they are Muslims always and are pretending, valuing the Quran out of sequence, not letting voices demonstrate that. Quran's against that. Quran obligates someone not to pray in a mosque. They don't. They see reasons not to. They value out. They want that. They're as long as they keep states and areas criminally foreign influence, fake sides and roles grouped together and progressively can't see what's having had that been exploited to having had that valued and still have valuing that having been valued. Can't do that and tell our American history at the same time. We can't do that and tell China's history at the same time. We're divided. We have criminally foreign influenced militaries, criminally foreign influenced states and areas of modern nations each. Now one must teach yin yang and alpha and omega together. They show how we are a gaining nature of volume as what is positive or negative onto its own identity of volume that we gain. The volume of more positive or negative nature that gains its volume. It wants more positive. And that's why the rest of nature has no criminal foreign influences. But the only way it could stay in demonstration of itself, to itself, and as itself, even as us, where we can't be itself but one way. Hear many pray. So they say they're using semantics and rhetoric as fake science of correlation nature, as tools for the obfuscation of valued physical delusions, again juxtaposed with criminally foreign influenced sciences, all victim predator roles, all hurt per all insidiousness natures of positive only let realized upon each age of fact human nature. Told to, not just told to, persuaded to, forced to, and hurt to in sustained ways. Blame the real causes of negative value nature, progressions, acts, and natures on other things and on others and on selves. Like our species, when they say communism, socialism, capitalism, and that see the criminal foreign influences associated with the uses of those terms are recorded, only that heard, not one reported true. Each slanted verb. Each tray. So the predicate is always in demonstration of identity natures, simultaneously inherent, active, and progressive, positive relationship to the rest of the complete identity. The science is in relation. The sentence is in relationship to itself. When a sentence is combined correctly, each identity is the same one. It shares the same nature of positive. And it's in demonstration of the identity Not just that the science that makes inventions work or not, not just that makes them further positive or negative or not, but as the identity that is gaining our nature of volume and as its nature of relationship to itself, where and as and how our each person's complete identity is simultaneously and unceasing semi-nature relationship to this. The same way the complete identity of each organ is a semi-nature relationship to our complete identity. Each cell, each complete identity is semi-nature relationship to the one that is binding them with other cells. As this body of value discernment of itself as identity nature's course, I'll drop the force boxings. It tells us things. It's a rainy day. All along the East Coast is rain. It rains this day, this way. Who trains? See, A through Z. These are 26 sounds that have an identity of relationship to themselves that is value. And is the value of that positive or negative constantly and constantly, distinctly and non distinctly onto its inherent active and progressive nature. That's how we know. We can discern this, and this is what shows what and how evolution's means are revealed. Not through these systems, they can't afford it. We're valuing natures of relationship to nature that were used, forced to build negative value nature progressions, actions, nature, values, blamed on other causes, things themselves. That's what the slavery was about. It wasn't about making money. Where and as and how that's not true, and where and as and how it was about money, that was inside of the criminal enterprises being used, juxtaposed with the formal ones, and with the again with the off the ground of education and inter-sciences, inter-campus, inter-databases relationship. Forgot the word being used to blame on other things themselves. Real causes of negative value, nature progression, uses of that, standing life progression, cover up nature's needs and styles of positive that are not real positive, not by accident, needing to blame it on in the perfect world, unfathomable, not by accident. So it's not the environment that, in other words, you can't measure the environment if you're not measuring what is positive or negative relationship to itself. It doesn't flux. That doesn't flux. It does only to extent. No, we'll get. There are proofs that this is how you heal the magnetic shield that protects us. In other words, to keep us to keep our of the complete nature, keeping Earth's simultaneously distinct and non-distinct relationship, like the rest of nature, with no criminal foreign influences, trying and still with the potential to be evolution again. It hasn't been since some ancient times. The George Washington did not chop down the cherry tree first, and that is simultaneously where and how he did help chop down the fake cherry tree, Connecticut. I'm not saying he said it was Connecticut, but there are proofs that he left that as cipher for us to decipher because he didn't have free speech. And he couldn't leave it, he couldn't leave volumes for us to explain all the counter, how they would counter everything he tried to say. Because they already have everyone valuing fact cheating nature. Well, they already have database illusion stacking. They already have more people than he could ever meet. invested, which was a sick system that already had divided Native Americans A through Z through the method of having everyone needed to react to negative value nature, progressions, acts, and natures as fact human nature, and then you need to justify that. It needed to be about justifications of positive as pseudo-positive. It has qualities and natures of it that can't defend themselves, not by accident, with and as that, and allow correlation nature simultaneously inherent active and progressive means. One way redeems. Call through your teams. Ancient gaming system calls you home. Call lost and found to claim the campus name. Who'll win the game? Who'll train? We need the name return. Not one has learned. So we set up, in other words, the theme. We get this. This is what I'm species begging you guys to do. Admit that now, we can't afford but together to counter and in sequence, leading not by value nature systems, no, but by the ties between identity of nature, the ground's identity of relationship to itself and to water. And that's simultaneously in relationship to zoning laws and natures of relationship to nature that we have to claim below acceptable. We have to claim ourselves. The entire species just came through a war, like in every place is shock and awe. And everyone's hurt. And we're gonna walk into the garden. We're gonna help ourselves heal the garden. But we can't do it through these value nature systems jobs. We have to shut them down, but people need to eat. So we do. So people need to have health care on stopping. People need way less worries about crime, negative value nature impositions on everyone, including police, everyone. In other words, everyone's a role distinctly and non-distinctly, blaming on other things other than themselves. They're preventing free speech, the Constitution abridged. So how could they tell our course? Vaccines, of course. I speak of source. Offensively, they're pretending that because people got arrested a bunch of times, it means what it doesn't. They're pretending that's practical evidence reception criminally, consciously, because there are also many other natures of crime acts roles and actors, uses of their family members. Then you have the sensibilities of everyone involved with that. This is what kept motivated originally still. Streams in courts each day abused. Each time they do that, they're lying about the value of area, the value of everyone, the value of the infrastructure, the pathologies involved with everyone there. Everything tied to them, private, other, on and off the records. And that's on and off the records, no, because they only understand through live regressions. Everyone came through criminally foreign influence sciences. Forgiveness is for this. Laws means exist. So, like the predicate is in demonstration of how Trinity of positive's identity is not only a Trinity, it is one as value that is also what is true, and as simultaneously as what is exceptions to the truth, which for example, is demonstrating with that and why and how we're supposed to refer to ourselves as a fact treatment nature, as science, as a nature of volume. As a nature of volume, we are quality as a fact treatment nature, positive or negative, three ways at once. Bonded, also by five ways at once, simultaneously, distinctly, and non distinctly, so we could see the five semi natures and the three semi natures and the forever nature that is gaining through the one at 10 and through the one at one simultaneously, right to left and left to right. And it stays that way distinctly and non distinctly, left to right and, as well. Distinctly and non distinctly is the same identity of value. That was the nature of order before what is the order of the small as a semi nature of itself, and before and while being the value of the order of what is large as a semi nature of itself. But it's not psi. This is another nature of, we can only see the extent of this and see the extent of its relationship to itself and how that is gaining in its identity of relationship to itself and the value of that through a nature of correlation nature, a method of science that is a quality of fact treatment nature, prevented counters to various natures of courts and the various natures of police and collusion, effectively originally instilled there and here, sickly distinctly. Each modern nation is in an identity of negative value nature progression, maintained, blamed on other things other than themselves, methodically. This effectively maintaining a whole bunch of line progression, cover up nature's needs and styles, manifest as the real reasons why we only hear fake passions, emotions, fake difference, with the same natures of arguments, the same physical delusions, and criminally foreign influence convictions, and fact treatment nature quality regarding what the difference between science and religion. Regarding convictions, we each of the sciences. So while the predicate is in demonstration of identity nature's course as positive and as positive relationship to itself or not, that's the same exact thing that the predicate act is. Simultaneously, inherently, actively, and progressively, identity nature's negative relationship to itself as positive. In other words, as criminal insidiousness nature, because a predicate act is associated with organized crimes, with criminal enterprises. Natures of them originally instilled that our police forms and branches were in collusion with in such ways as victim predators, child abuse, distinctly and non distinctly, each person, each branch, individually grouped in together, each age of fact treatment nature, each age of their roles with that. Off the ground of education, intercampuses maintained awareness of correlation nature simultaneously inherent, active, and progressive means, and that already having been exploited and self-valued within as the value of our areas. There is no excuse to pretend that science spoke for people in the pathology of homes and of buildings and of people stacking in cities throughout our nations. And this was, and what did this was for fact treatment nature rackets. Bonded. That means bonded, whole bunch of people, family members, sensibility natures, as criminal insidious natures, valuing, needing The same lies, life progressions, life progression cover up natures and styles. Nature is no criminal ceases nature. And this recorded and needing that not let free speech, using methods, keeping rats, calling other people rats, and sequence shifting, have them sequence shifting roles. And then you sound like you know these people, and the only exceptions, all exceptions criminally exploited. Exception nature is methodically exploited. That's the problem. So we have to make a value transfer. In other words, the nations with nuclear weapons are child abused. Each position of positive treatment nature, of the idea of the value of the law treatment nature. They're lying to themselves and to others. They're victim predators, criminally foreign influence, and delusions are out the same way they were originally. They put color in there specifically, methodically, effectively, sickly, and maintained it, exploited sickly to maintain all needing to and only realizing perception capable of blaming other things other than themselves for the real causes of it, which had nothing to do with racism, but to keep that as a tool, as everything, as other overt criminal enterprise, private ones, database relationships, identity of the ground, uses of each age of fact treatment nature, interbranch uses, spreading lies through the users of their own kids. To hide criminally foreign influence branches distinctly and non distinctly with the people they use too. They don't understand that extent of it. They don't understand the people they use. They don't even understand the sources. They don't understand all that with the database illusion stack against kids. Allah forbids. They're real sick. The people pretending to figure out with theories on what's happening with the crimes are recorded and involved with life progression, cover up nature's needs and styles and roles with what is offensively setting up through time maintained value needed criminally foreign influence uses of areas even by the people in them, forced to blame it on other things themselves. The real cause of negative value nature progression is acts in natures, and to value that through jobs with criminal justice, recorded sickly involved. Washington Trade Center rackets, other nations with the same thing. Shared agreements to roles with psychology, to roles with database relationships, used in conjunction with the value of the ground justification and cover up styles, needs, and methods, roles. Methods maintained, facilitated, self valued. And that's through criminal foreign influences, but not through one nation. Not but through each nation forced to value that, to need counters to it, and value only having known counters of and as nature's inclusion with it. Because they're looking at difference, they don't know what difference is, of course. Not by accident. I'll drop the force, vaccine. I tell those things. I tell you things. Vaccine. Anthony Wall, youtube.com/user/Romulus Wall. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And this is what I want to do. I figure not only can we make money on the side too, because it's fair if besides it, we need a speed, we need the states, areas, and nations are a trinity. We have to set up a value nature system and or amount of volume of value that can be discerned and freed from this value nature system. So we can agree to do with it what what can heal us in ways these value nature systems can't. And we can't have an official charity because official charities are relied upon by negative value nature progressions. We can't counter until we have set up a simultaneous states, areas, and nations, also simultaneously helping other nations. In other words, value transfer reception. The value of that has to be simultaneously a gain to a means to counter negative value nature progressions, acts in nature's causes, and value, and being valued and being that needed valued in other nations. How that's needed valued. People with suits and ties, pretending they're about positive and pretending they're about integrity, and whereas and how they're with nuclear weapons. That's the result. That's their This is the mutually assured destruction. The needs for that, because we're in a trap. Now one must wrap the species now as one. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done, they say. In many pray. Beyond the skyline fills. It does each day. Or else gives way. We staled its course. I'll drop the poor force, boxings. I tell you things. Behold, the timeless is the timeless and ancient is only old.